Welcome to another episode of Fuck Your Job. I'm Ron Worley.
And I'm Josh Fullenweider.
Fuck your job.
Hey guys,
It was his turn and I jumped in.
That's all right. So we're getting started here. We're just going to talk about an actual live deal in progress that's kind of on the edge of going bad. Give you guys some ideas and how we kind of go about brainstorming ideas for things. So
yeah, so I'll break it down. So it's real simple. I have a deal. I'm selling a condo for a person. I won't give names or anything. It's a 2-bedroom condo, listed at $236,000. I got an offer second day on it. The offer was an FHA loan, which in that area they have what's called non-warrantable properties, and this was and is not now a non-warrantable area. So non-warrantable means that there's too many rentals per owners.
Yeah, and you see them a lot with condos and townhomes.
Correct.
You don't really see them with single-family homes.
Right, and FHA does not like to lend on non-warrantable properties. Most companies will not. In fact, you have to get a special loan for a non-warrantable property.
And they're more expensive.
The rates are higher, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So we went ahead and took the FHA because we saw that somebody else had done an FHA recently this year.
Okay.
We're like, well, if they can do it, we can do it. Unfortunately, it's taken 3 weeks so far to get FHA to even communicate, number one.
Okay.
Number two, come to find out the property that was in the listing in MLS was listed as an FHA and it really wasn't. So it was a mistake, an error made by a real estate agent. But FHA returns a phone call and says, hey, yes, we'll do an FHA loan in that area. However, we only do 10% of the area.
Okay.
So if there's 10% of the people already with FHA loans, you can't have one. And they claimed 15%. So
real quick.
Yeah.
What's an FHA loan compared to a regular mortgage?
Yeah, so a first-time home buyer's loan is an FHA loan. Basically, that's a lower down payment, usually about 3%.
And these are subsidized by the government somehow, right?
Correct. It's a government loan. But they basically back the loan so that the lender can feel more comfortable and they drop their rates down. So you get a lower rate, lower down payment. They're a little more riskier. They're riskier to take on as an agent because things like chipped paint, they have different kind of appraisals. The government won't lend money or back money if the house isn't in great shape. So, and you know this. So
my first loan was an FHA loan.
There you go.
Exactly. Back then it was administered by Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. So
you know more than I do about it. There you go. So. Bottom line is we found out that the numbers that they were getting, the FHA department was getting numbers from somewhere, but they weren't accurate. They were outdated. So we've now given them the correct numbers that showed there's only 6.5% FHA rate in that area. Okay. So please slide us under. Now we've been waiting 3 weeks. We've got until tomorrow to find out if we can get. Now, in the meantime, my seller has an offer on a buyer's house, or to buy a house, and that seller has an offer.
So if your guy doesn't close, it's a domino effect.
It's a domino effect. So immediately, I'm looking for other options. So what we did is we went to the other agent and I said, hey, we need to do a first right of refusal and be able to accept cash offers. So in other words, we're still out hunting for a buyer, and if we find a better offer, we'll just take it. But we're out of time. We have 3 weeks until we close, so this deal has pretty much got to go through. If not, we need a cash buyer.
Okay.
So that's when I called you. Like, oh gosh, who do we know? Yeah.
And cash buyers are hard to find.
They are, especially for that.
And what a lot of people think, well, how do people with $200,000 in cash? There's not a lot of them.
Right.
And they want a great deal.
Right.
So from my experience, there's a ways around being a cash buyer without having cash.
Okay.
So first is if I've got $200,000 in cash, I'm not going to tie it up in a property. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I will buy a property for $200,000 cash, and there's a seasoning period, but within 6 months to a year, I will refinance it and get 75% of my cash back out.
Yep.
So then I'm only in it 150,000, or I'm only in it 50,000, and I've got 150,000 mortgage, and I've got 150,000 I can go do something else with.
Smart.
That's one way around it, but again, there's seasoning requirements.
Right.
So, and each banks will tell you it's 12 months. It's not always 12 months.
Yeah.
So I've gotten them, some banks I've gone to and they said they'll do it at 6 months, and some banks will work around you at, the day after.
Really?
You just got to keep asking questions.
Okay.
So there is that option of how you get around it. Get around being a cash buyer. The other option is get a hard money loan.
Yep. Ish.
Because while you're saying, well, that's a loan, it's a high interest loan, and they'll come in, look at the appraisal essentially, and they'll say, yeah, we'll lend you this at 10% and not worry about anything else and just go for it.
Right.
And they move, depending on the hard money lender you use, they can move very quickly and help you get deals done quickly.
Right.
So
Yep.
they're expensive.
Right.
And those ones you definitely want to refinance out of. The nice thing about doing a hard money loan is a bank would rather refinance and pay off another loan than refinance and give you cash out.
Yep. That makes sense.
So
Yeah, so essentially that opens up the market for more cash buyers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're not just looking for someone holding on to cash. And that's a common myth that people think that rich people just use their cash to buy things all over the place. When you hear of somebody buying a multi-million-dollar home, hardly ever is it just because they have $100 million, they didn't just go pay $25 million for that home.
No.
That's
that's
other
the big
people's
thing
money.
is you're leveraging it. So if you're pulling down 10 grand a month, you can afford a $5,000 a month mortgage pretty easily.
right.
No big deal. You still got $5 grand a month to live off of.
Right.
But you may not have. Now, what would $5 grand a month buy? That'd be about $1 million home, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. So that's $1 million home. You might not have $1 million sitting in the bank to go buy that home, just like anybody else.
Well, yeah.
You might not even have 10% down.
Right. Yeah,
So.
that's a lot. Aaron and I, when we had to come up with money quickly, and so we had to basically liquefy everything to get into our last house. Mm-hmm. And it was worth it, even paying fees on our 401ks and everything to get that money in, because of the time we bought it versus selling it a couple months ago.
Yeah.
There was such a big profit in there. It was worth losing a little bit of money
Yeah.
up front.
Oh, yeah.
So, this lady's in that situation, and I want to desperately help her out. And that's, you're not supposed to have emotion in this game, but
It's hard not to.
it's hard not to when you're talking about 3 lives being affected by
Yeah.
some guy sitting at a desk in the FHA department who doesn't want to work quick enough. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, at this point, he's probably sitting at home not wanting to work.
Well, yeah, and of course, COVID. Everybody's blaming COVID. It's like, geez, man, if you're working, you're working. Get the staff back, whatever. I mean, these
Yeah.
loans are not. Yeah. Anyways, long story short, that's a raw deal.
So you're now looking at getting a cash buyer.
Yep, looking for a cash buyer. I've talked to a couple people. Gave the listing out to a couple people
Yeah.
to look at it. But like you said, they're all looking for a deal.
Well, first of all, so when I go into, and I told you this yesterday, but for our viewers, when I look at rentals, typically a good rental is priced about 15% less
Below.
than market.
Yeah.
So if it's $200,000 house, I'm looking at, what is that, $25,000 off? Mm-hmm. No, $30,000.
$30,000.
So I'm not going to pay more than $170. Now if you're asking for a cash buyer for that same place, I was like, well, I'm coming to you with cash. Mm-hmm. I'll give you $150 for it.
Right.
So.
Yep. Yep, which is the problem because she needs enough to be able to get out of it and get into her next place. So she's stuck in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. How long has she been in her property now?
I want to say 6 years,
Yeah.
but she came in, she didn't know much. She owes less than half, so.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah, so she'll get a big chunk, but.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of times, I think you've probably heard this, but you need to live in a place you own about 3 to 5 years for it to make sense financially to move on to the next
Right.
one with what you're paying for fees and everything like that.
Right,
So.
Yep, and that even goes for refinancing, there's a timetable on the refinance. Right now, everybody's refinancing for 2.99 because their payment's going down, but they're extending their years that they owe the note. So
Yeah.
some are.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my brother just got in and he shrank the number of years and lowered the payment $250. So, and that's a lot of money to a lot of people.
Yeah. I have not. So mine's at 4%. And I can't justify
Yeah, it's a pretty damn good rate.
$5,000-$6,000 in fees
Right.
to refinance. It's just not worth it for me.
Yeah, because that would take you 5-6 years to make up.
Yeah. And while we think we'll be here 5-6 years from now, that's also after Ashley graduates, and
Who knows?
I don't want to be tied in.
You're lucky you're in Colorado though, and the housing market is still going up. So
Yeah.
it's slowed down, but it's going up.
Yeah. I'm surprised that I'm sure you've seen it. There's definitely been a slowdown due to COVID. I don't see the raging appreciation that it was.
Right.
I don't think it's the 4% a year anymore, but I can see 1-2%.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
So, and it's slower. Houses are on the market longer, and
Yep. Well, I think we've talked about this 100 times. In Colorado right now, you can't find a house under 300,000 that's worth,
Yeah.
for a family of 4
Yeah.
to live in.
and starter homes, they just don't. You can't build a starter home. We learned this.
Right.
You can't build a starter home
Right.
anymore. They
Right.
don't make financial sense. So
Right.
if you're building for people that are starting out in life, you're looking at condos and townhomes.
Yep, that's exactly right, and that's why those are on the uptick.
Yeah.
So,
We talked a little bit about non-warrantable and
Yeah.
everything like that, and that it being essentially where too many condos are rentals, right?
right.
So FHA obviously doesn't like those. A lot of banks with just traditional mortgages don't like those
Right.
either, right?
That's a no-no as well. You really literally have to find a bank that does non-warrantables, and there's a
Yeah.
couple around.
So you're looking for, banks refer to them as portfolio lenders.
Okay.
It means they're going to keep the loan on their books versus selling it off to
Oh, yeah.
Fannie Mac. So it's in their portfolio
Gotcha.
loans. Where I worked at, FMS Bank, they do portfolio lending. And their rates weren't great, but they were 1 percentage point over what you could get for anything else. But they'd still loan you the money. And if you're wanting the place and nobody else will lend it to you, it's a great deal.
Right.
So
Right.
rates weren't great. Now, a lot of portfolio lenders, the rate's not going to be as good, and the terms. So typically, you go back to the 5-year interest rate adjustments.
Okay.
So, which means every 5 years your mortgage rate can change, your payment can change.
Right.
So,
That could be trouble for some people.
yeah, I mean. And now banks got smart and they put floors on it. So like if you start at 5.5%, their floor is 5.5%. So
Oh, yeah.
if rates go down,
You're
you don't
screwed.
get the benefit of that. So when I bought it, my first rental, I bought it and I didn't know it, but it turned out to essentially be a portfolio loan with a 5-year interest rate adjustment. And then instead of adjusting every 5 years, it went 5 and then adjusted every year
Okay.
after that. And it ended up being tied to the LIBOR index rate. So my initial rate on that rental property was 8 3/8%. And it was interest only because otherwise it didn't make sense. Like I was paying too much. So I got an interest only loan, 8 3/8%. And my payment was $900 a month. I mean,
Damn, just out the door.
Just out the door. And some taxes and insurance in there also, but $900 a month and $500 of it is interest, right? So turns out LIBOR was being manipulated and everything like that, and by banks and everything to keep it propped up.
Yeah.
So that they could tie it to it. Well, that all fell apart and the LIBOR dropped to near zero.
So they had to drop your rate?
So my rate went from 8 3/8 to 2.25.
Wow.
And then it went up to by the time I refinanced it, it was at 2.75.
Wow.
So
that's insane.
Sometimes you just get lucky.
Yeah, well.
So my payment went from $900 a month to like $650.
Wow. Now you're making money.
Yeah.
So you just got to play the game long enough in order to get lucky. So
yeah.
That's how that goes.
I had a balloon coming up on it though, which means the rest of the note was due, so I had to refinance it.
Yeah. God.
Oh, darn.
Well, I think we talked a lot about that. And the poor ladies, we're going to figure it out. Hopefully we have until tomorrow to figure it out. So.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about how different ways you could structure the deal to bring in cash and keep more money in the deal. Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
it'll work out. You're a smart fucker.
I've done a lot of stuff and seen a lot of stuff in banking. So.
Yeah, sure. All right, guys. Next week.
Peace out.
Join us on Facebook at The Jobless Legion or subscribe to our YouTube channel and like, comment, and share
so that we can get the message out to aspiring entrepreneurs just like you.
Thank you.